Hello, guys. So I will be talking to you about mind and body, connecting them, and how this is important not just on stage, but in our everyday lives for living a fuller and more wonderful, experienced life. So anyway, while I've always loved writing and my entire education here at Vanderbilt, always in the back of my head, I've continued grappling with this. I want to be an actor. Not the phone call your parents want to get from you when you say what you want to do with the rest of your life. While I've always loved everything else, it really all seemed to connect to acting for me. So this kind of training I've had for most of my life, I started acting when I was very little, was sort of like what's typical now is method acting. So it's like, I'm gonna become the part, like I'm gonna glue my eyes shut so I know what it's like to be blind for a month before I film, like the movie Ray. And so it's a lot of emphasis on emotional truth and remembering times in your life when you were really sad so that you can connect to the character you're playing and be really sad and it's believable and you can effectively portray what the character is feeling. So this is mostly based on Stanislavski theory, and that was championed by Lee Strasberg and Stella Adler, who has studios now in New York, and it's where I took many of the classes. And obviously stage versus screen, you know, up in a movie when you see actors, they're really up close, so it's even more essential that this is very realistic and naturalistic. But then for classical and Shakespeare texts, this is still important, but also remembering vocal quality and stage presence. So in the UK, they really emphasize studying this classical text, obviously because Shakespeare is from there. And the UK is known for really like intense, gritty training of their actors. Also because London theater is like some of the best in the world. It's known for being a cut above and for having really fine actors that work there. So there's a greater emphasis on technical work because of all of the classical works so that you can understand the text. And there's also a lot of emphasis on movement. So I said, okay, I want to go to the best place. London is the best place. I'd like to study there for a semester. I want to be an actor. This is like for sure, like I want to do this. So this is my last chance. I'm going to study for a semester, see if Vanderbilt's okay for it. So LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, is one of the top acting schools in the UK. So I was ready. I was like, all right, I'm gonna like really be like going like emotionally deep into my past. I'm gonna like become this great actor. I'm gonna come back and I'm just gonna be like so like deep and into it and ready. Instead, I got my schedule, and they do the schedule kind of weird, but basically it's like every day, a third of my day was dedicated to like movement and body work. So you can see like pure voice, improv, dancing, combat. I had 2 different movement classes with 2 different teachers. So most of my day was spent in movement. And so I get this, and I remember coming around, I'm like, I don't know what all these are. I'd be in classes, I'm like, why am I on the floor right now? Like, can I read some classical text? I mean, the afternoons were rehearsals, which I loved, and we had other acting classes, but I was just like getting a little frustrated as to why I was breathing for like 45 minutes in the morning instead of looking at scripts. So let's go back to what acting is and what theater is. Patsy Rodenberg is a wonderful and well-esteemed director and instructor at Michael Howard Studios in New York, and she did a great TED Talk, and she talked about acting. So some of these points are from her. But basically, when you think of an actor, you think of someone who's behaving as someone else, who's acting or acting on the intentions and motivations of that character and what that character wants. And that's, you know, in the function of the play and in the function of what the play is trying to say. So she emphasizes how you need to be present, how you need to tell the truth, otherwise you're not going to believe it. Like, if somebody's up on stage and is like, you know, I'm really mad. No one's going to believe that. Like, are you looking at me? Hello. But if you are up there and you're like, I'm really fucking mad at you, everyone's going to believe that because you're looking at them and you're present. And I curse, so everybody's going to look. And she also said, she told a great story about how she met a woman, and the woman, her son had committed suicide, and the only people that ever came to her and were able to look at her in the eye and say, I'm so sorry for your loss, and talk about the death with her, talk about death, and really be there with her and experience it, were the actors, because they're used to being present. Everyone else like couldn't knock on her door, would maybe like send a note or something. She said the actors were the only ones who were there and present and looking me in the eye. So all this goes back to you're finding the truth, you're reaching someone else, you're acting as a character, you're communicating. So you're communicating as the character, communicating as your person, The conversation you're having with someone on stage is communicating something to the scene is communicating something on the part of the play, and then obviously the play is hopefully communicating something to the audience about if it's just entertainment or if it's something greater. So yes, communication, that's our key. Well, imagine my surprise, well not surprise, I guess we should all know this, is that communication is actually 50 to 70% body language. So this means your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, most of these are told to you from someone else like before you even realize it, by how they're standing, by how they're looking at you, by their stance. So when I did like this before, it's somebody who's uninterested and not angry, where someone like this is someone who's really intense and is really like focusing on you. So this also indicates personality traits as well. So you're basically reading a person the entire time through their body before they even open their mouth. And it also communicates to you. So like if you're hungry or thirsty or tired, etc. But it can also let you know when you're in a dangerous situation. Like your intuition is very good at that. And it's also letting you know about other people. So if you learn to really listen to your body, you know how to communicate with others effectively as well. So basically, the body is important because it's communicating 50 to 70% of the time. So how do you train your body to be able to more effectively communicate and to be able to listen to your body as you communicate? So we would do lots of these freeing the body exercises, back to LAMDA. So we would do stretches, we would do yoga and Tai Chi, we would be breathing. That's a good picture. We'd be like walking around. We'd spend like 10 minutes like walking around. Like, okay, how do you feel? Like, what are you walking like? Like, where are you walking to? We would do animal exercises. So we'd like become like whatever animal you thought like was your character or how you were feeling that day. And we would do dancing. So you would like just play music and you would dance to yourself. And it was all about sort of just like letting your body go. And what's interesting is we did one exercise a couple different times where they would play music and you were paired up with someone, and your only assignment was to dance the entire time to the music and look them in the eye and didn't say anything. And it was for like 40 minutes. And people would end afterwards and say they'd never felt so vulnerable or so exposed to someone or so like connected to someone in their entire life just from doing that through their body and through connecting. And we also did Alexander technique, which I'll go into now. So Alexander technique, some of you may have heard of it. A lot of dancers study it as well. So it's really about freeing up your body, and it was developed by someone named Frederick Matthias Alexander, he was an actor in Australia, and he experienced a lot of hoarseness on stage, and he couldn't figure out why. So he started developing these exercises where he would think with his mind to certain parts of his body and work on releasing it and relaxing it. Because what happens when you're stressed, it's a natural fight or flight response, is like you compress. So you compress, you tighten up, and back when we were running away from animals or whatever, like this was good. You compress yourself, you'll hide, you're fine. But mostly today, like a thing that would cause stress is like a speech, and like compressing yourselves doesn't help you. Instead, your muscles clamping up will actually like cut off the communication to your brain more quickly. So you're not breathing effectively and you're not thinking as clearly. So he talked a lot about realigning your body, so it's the way you were like when you were a kid, because when you're a little kid and you're walking around, you're actually like have perfect posture. You sit and you squat and you do everything the way your body was designed to do without sort of the social norms that have caused you to like slump and become more stressed and hunched over. So, and this allows, for acting it's great because this allows more ease on stage. So if your body is relaxed, obviously you won't have problems with hoarseness because you're not tense. You won't forget your lines as often because you're relaxed and you're thinking clearly. You'll be able to more freely use your body to transform as the character, and you'll be able to use your body to communicate effectively, like we talked about. So, and this is also great for everyday life because when you're sitting or you're at your computer or you're running, if you're not doing it correctly, if you're tense and if you're tightened and your muscles aren't as loose as they should be and your body isn't working, you're not going to be thinking as clearly. It's going to be harder to concentrate, and you won't be as present in the moment. So this is extremely helpful for like lectures and for conversations, business meetings, everything. It allows you to really be more present and more in tune. We also studied Laban Theory. So this is like a little more out there. But it's Laban movement analysis, and it was developed by Rudolf Laban, who is considered the father of European modern dance. And it's essentially a way of labeling movements that people do as a way to indicate their personality. So yeah, it's like a language, basically. So it's divided into space, weight, time, and flow. So basically, if you make a move, like a punch, for example, if you punch someone like this, that's a direct movement. It's quick, it's sudden, and it's strong. So anyone who punches like that, let's say out of the blue, you might notice, okay, that person has a rash personality. You might also notice that that person is very direct, like knows what he or she wants if they're going to punch. Maybe they have a lot of pride. That, like, how someone does that is very telling. So this allows you to recognize, like I just said, personality and movements. For another example, Hamlet, in contrast, if any of you know Hamlet, he's not a very direct person. He sits the entire play and is like, to be or not to be, like blah, 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 my mom cheated on my dad, like what should I do? And the entire 4 hours is about him figuring it out. So his movements would be a lot more light and airy and someone who's not very direct. So that would, pair up with something like a flick maybe, or like that person I did at the beginning who's like I'm so angry. That's someone who's very indirect because they're not looking at you in the eye. And additionally, we would do exercises. Basically, it said that your body is ahead of your mind at times. So if you do exercises with an action like punching, or he did scooping up ice cream, you can actually trigger in your mind the feeling that you had when you did the movement maybe the last time, like so sense memory or something, like tasting the ice cream. So we would sit and like scoop, so this is a gliding motion, if you'll see, light, sustained, indirect, and like scoop up ice cream until we tasted the ice cream in our mouths. Yeah. Okay, so all this goes back to body awareness. So we're freeing up the body. We're aware of how the body is moving when other people act and react. So this allows us, obviously, to adapt and communicate better. We can read others. We can conform, if we want, to how they're acting so that we can better empathize and better communicate with them. This is important for on stage and off. Self-awareness is important because you can better read your body's signals and what your body wants, what you want to do, and how you feel about someone. Comfort with the body, acceptance, openness. This allows for more open and solid relationships. And if you have a greater sense of yourself, body and mind, it's obviously easier to have a greater friendship or a sense of someone else because you're not like fighting to figure out yourself first. Finally, the body is connected to the mind, as I've been saying. So if you separate them and you don't communicate between them, this can lead to things like tension and stress. So like I was saying, if your muscles are tight, this leads to tension. And this can cause or be connected to anxiety, eating disorders. I struggled with disordered eating, and I remember in those times of my life, I was so up in my head and so concerned about what I was eating and what it looked like that my body became this sort of like separate entity that I wanted to like defeat, that I wanted to, control, and, not realizing how much value and how much purpose it has and how it can help me be a healthier person. And this, it was those times that I had more anxiety and was more depressed, etc. And this also relates to relationships and sex. So if you're not connected with your body and you look at it like a separate entity, or vice versa, any relationship you have with someone is necessarily going to be more disconnected than if you were experiencing the entire thing. So I know Alex knows D.H. Lawrence. He talked a lot about how a sexual experience should be body and mind related because it's beautiful. It's only when you start to separate it and you look at it as a dirty act that it becomes that, when you look at your body as something separate, when really your body is just as intelligent as your mind. And this is a quotation from a Laban teacher's manual that says, human beings operate as a functional whole. Mind, body, and emotions are not separate functions, but are integrated synergistically in human action and reaction. So again, this just goes back to everything I was saying. Your body, your mind, your emotions, all of them function together. And if you start separating them, there's no way you can communicate effectively. There's no way you can understand yourself fully, and there's no way you can have full relationships with other people because one of them is necessarily lacking if you don't know yourself in the two-way there. So, finally, use your body, take it seriously, realize all that it has to offer, and if you start opening it and freeing it, you'll see your mind start to be open to new experiences as well. And you'll be able to be present and in the moment like actors have to be on stage and on screen, and you can have fuller experiences. So, yes, love it all. Thank you.